From popular nightclubs where unsuspecting living dance right alongside chilling apparitions of the past, to dense forest parks whose woodlands are stalked by ghastly manifestations after dark. Are you sure you're ready to brave our picks for some of the most haunted places in Minnesota? Number 5. The St. Paul City Hall and Ramsey County Courthouse. The St. Paul City Hall and Ramsey County Courthouse, which is located off of Kellogg Boulevard West out of St. Paul, Minnesota, is a 20-story Art Deco skyscraper serving as the primary site for the state's second judicial court and city hall, that also contains the iconic The Vision of Peace effigy, which is actually the largest carved onyx statue not just in the state or country, but in the world. Historically, in 1928, and financed through a jaw-dropping $4 million public bond offering, this prominent City Hall was designed under renowned architects Holabird and Root of Chicago and Learby & Company out of St. Paul. However, following the market crash of 1929, the initial $4 million wouldn't stretch as far as anticipated, delaying construction for a highly anticipated grand opening in 1932. Notably, the hall is comprised of 23 different types of wood from 18 countries across the globe, as well as from various marbles. In 1936, the aforementioned The Vision of Peace statue, which overshadows the whole of the first floor, would be dedicated in honor of Ramsey County war veterans as a tribute to everlasting peace. And from 1989 to 1995, Ramsey County would fund a $48.8 million renovation and expansion project aimed at retaining the site's historic appearance while refurbishing where necessary and efficientizing space. The St. Paul City Hall and Ramsey County Courthouse remains open into the present, housing a range of county and city offices while offering options in pre-scheduled and even paid private touring. While it's unknown exactly who or what haunts this weathered old property, an assortment of local legends claim the hall may harbor the spirits of former staff and of those who were connected to it in lives since past, and those frequenting its bounds have reported extreme cold spots felt in adverse weather, disembodied voices heard from empty spaces, and the sounds of what seem to be a crowd of phantom footsteps detected when no one else is around. While a range of unidentified apparitions in clothing spanning the eras have been observed across the whole of the premises, by far the most commonly encountered entities at St. Paul City Hall and Ramsey County Courthouse are those of an old-timey shoe shiner who's often spied in the lobby, and the shockingly disturbing form of a man hanging from a gallows, who it's suspected is the restless soul of a convict executed on sight long ago. Number 4. The Landmark Center. The Landmark Center, which is located off of 5th Street West out of Rice Park in St. Paul, Minnesota, is a historic, dynamic cultural campus placed in the heart of downtown that acts as stage to all manner of music events, theater shows, exhibitions, public forums, and more. Historically, in 1902, the iconic Landmark Center was first completed and would serve as a U.S. post office, courthouse, and custom house to the state. And in 1934, notably, it was within this very building that girlfriend to John Dillinger, Evelyn Frechette, along with Alvin Creepy Karpus, Doc Barker, and other members of the Barker Karpus gang were actually tried for their crimes. Sadly, over the years, both tenants and time were unkind to the property. In 1967, federal offices would move to a new building, and by 1970 the site would actually come under threat of demolition. However, fortunately, in 1972 a group of concerned citizens would band together to save the expanse, raising funds necessary for full restorations, and in 1978 the Landmark Center would be reopened to the public and placed on the National Register of Historic Places. In the present, the Landmark Center remains open under the ownership of Ramsey County and is managed by the nonprofit Minnesota Landmarks. The site also offers Anita's Cafe, the Landmark Gift Shop, 5 separate gallery spaces, and houses a range of St. Paul arts and culture organizations. Over its lengthy existence, the Landmark Center has picked up a reputation surrounding the abundant supernatural phenomena experienced across its bounds, and those who frequent it commonly report orbs and strange forms captured in photography, instances of doors opening and closing on their own as if someone unseen is passing briefly through them, and disembodied voices, footsteps, and laughter detected from vacant rooms. The spirit of a man in an old work uniform has been encountered in the elevator and across the 3rd floor, while many describe the constant feelings of being watched, of being followed, or even of being brushed up against by a presence or presences unseen. By far the most famous entity on site is rumored to be that of old Jack Pfeiffer, a former bellhop who in life agreed to launder money for gangsters, and following his arrest and in fear of prison ended his own life in his jail cell by way of poisoning. As locals tell it, the ghost of Jack isn't friendly, and has been known to steal shots and drinks, tip over bottles, photobomb the unsuspecting, and has even scared women using the restrooms. Number 3. Interstate State Park. Interstate State Park, which straddles the St. Croix River right on the Minnesota-Wisconsin state line, is a grouping of 2 adjacent state parks, each bearing the same moniker, though the Wisconsin portion spans around 1,330 acres, while the Minnesota portion only 298 acres right near Taylor's Falls. Notably, this site is recognized as the first state park in Wisconsin, the second in Minnesota, and the first state park ever to span between 2 states. Historically, predating European expansion, the St. Croix River acted as a significant transportation route filled with bountiful resources to a number of tribes native to the region. In 1680, some of the first instances of Europeans passing through the Dalles were documented, and by the 18th century, a French fort was placed right where the campground on the Minnesota side of Interstate now lies. From 1837 to 1898 and through the logging era, timber was rafted down the St. Croix, amidst which time, by 1857, a sawmill would begin operating near the Minnesota portion of the park, and was actually joined in 1867 by a shipbuilding yard. Through the late 19th century, the Dalles of the St. Croix would begin to draw in waves of tourists. In 1895, the Minnesota portion of Interstate was declared a state park, and in 1900, the Wisconsin side would follow suit, with the civilian Conservation Corps developing park lands, building roads, charting trails, and establishing picnic and rest facilities through the 1930s. Interstate State Park remains open into the present, with its 2 parks administered separately and requiring different permits. The Minnesota side offers campgrounds with showers, plentiful hiking trails, popular rock climbing paths, boating and kayaking options, and much, much more. Over its lengthy history, the expanse that is now Interstate has acted as source to a range of local legends and cherished ghost stories, and is a favored target amongst daredevils, dark tourists, or town youths seeking a good scare. And those who have braved its bounds, especially after nightfall, have reported extreme cold spots felt in adverse weather, encounters with cryptids or unidentified abominations, and spook lights sighted drifting through the trees along the ridgeline. Phantom illuminations, like lantern glows, have been spied on the Wisconsin side of the river in the early morning or late evenings, while others have told of shadowy manifestations that stalk the living at great lengths. Possibly the most famous and commonly cited apparition at Interstate is that of a little girl, who's often observed running along the edge of the cliffside dangerously close to its drop. While many unsuspecting visitors have attempted to stop this small spirit from plunging to her doom, and others who are wise to her phenomena have tried to ask her name or why she's stuck there, both parties have been met in disappointment, as upon approach, she always fades away. Number 2. First Avenue. First Avenue, which is located where else but off of First Avenue and 7th Street North out of downtown Minneapolis, Minnesota, is a historic music venue widely celebrated as one of the longest-running independent venues of its type in the whole of the country, that's actually earned massive renown for its hosting of a number of significant names, as well as for giving a range of popular artists their start. Historically, in 1937, the structure now housing First Avenue was initially established as the Minneapolis Greyhound Bus Depot, which would end up closing its doors in 1968, and in 1970, the whole of this aged hub would be purchased under Allen Fingerhut, after which it was converted into nightclub space. Through the 1980s, First Avenue would rise as a music and entertainment landmark, even playing a role in the establishment of the 80s funk rock subgenre through the Minneapolis sound, while also acting as a primary local venue to hometown hero, Prince. Over the years, the club would host a range of notable names and performances, but sadly, by 2004, it would hit financial troubles and would file for bankruptcy. However, within 2 weeks, the site was purchased by longtime managers Steve McClellan, Jack Myers, and Byron Frank, after which it was promptly reopened to the public and has remained as such since. In the present, First Avenue offers a range of shows and events across multiple stages, and its grounds are marked by more than 400 large stars, commemorating its many featured artists alongside other figures notable to both the city and its establishment. Eerily, the whole of First Avenue grounds are surrounded by a range of local legends pertaining to various hauntings and paranormal activity encountered about, and those frequenting the site have reported objects moving on their own or even flying dangerously through the air, instances of DJs detecting phantom voices, screams, or even demonic growls through headphones, and run-ins with a presence dubbed Skippy who likes to play pranks on the living and mess with equipment. By far the most famous First Avenue fable surrounds the ghost of a blonde woman in a green jacket, who's often mistaken as living by unsuspecting patrons, until she vanishes before their very eyes. While several iterations to her origin story exist, with sources such as the Minnesota Monthly claiming this all transpired through the 1940s, and others that it happened much later after the site had become a nightclub, all converge to suggest that long ago in life this young woman chose to end it all by way of hanging herself in the 5th stall of the women's restroom, possibly due to a lover who left her, or who never returned from World War II. Whatever the case, to date, this ghostly gal has been sighted across the property, often dancing amongst the living on the floor, and doing a good job blending in until those around her notice that she's minus her legs, and sort of just floating there. Additionally, some also tell of the many homeless who died on site while the expanse still acted as a bus station, and a handful of more pleasant encounters with our ghostly dancing girl have entailed the sightings of the spectral forms of these individuals as well, also void of legs, floating and dancing right alongside her, as they all seemingly enjoy their time partying it up in the afterlife. Number 1. Winona State University. Winona State University is a public research institution based out of the town of its namesake, being Winona, Minnesota, that's actually recognized as the oldest member of the Minnesota State Colleges and Universities system. Historically, in 1858, this school was initially founded as the Winona Normal School, and was the first normal school west of the Mississippi. In 1860, its first class would meet, but would be later delayed by both the Civil and Sioux Wars, and the normal school's first class wouldn't see graduation until 1866. Over the following years, the institution would see rapid growth, requiring its first formal facility be constructed in 1869. In 1894, this site would welcome the addition of 2 new wings onto its old main. In 1909, Ogden Hall was completed, and in 1910, the Maury Hall dorm was finished up. In 1921, the Winona State Normal School would be re-established as the Winona Teachers College. Sadly, in 1922, a fire would result in the destruction of the original old main, though fortunately and notably no one was harmed as it occurred smack dab in the middle of term break. And in 1924, a new main building, College Hall, was constructed in Old Main's stead. In 1957, the Teachers College would be re-established again as Winona State College, with its curriculum expanding beyond the scope of education alone. And in 1975, the site would be elevated to university status, and incidentally re-established a final time as Winona State University. WSU remains open into the present, accommodating a formidable enrollment of 9,000, while offering more than 80 programs from its main campus, alongside collegiate programs from satellite campuses at Winona State University Rochester and the Winona West campus. Chillingly, WSU's main campus has long been shrouded in stories of the supernatural and in campus legends perpetuated by generations of faculty and students alike. In Phelps Hall, back in 1922, a fire occurred, and while no loss of life was ever recorded, for whatever reason, those who frequent it have reported the phantom sounds of youths screaming for their lives heard through the night, which has resulted in myths revolving around some form of cover-up. The Performing Arts Center is rumored to harbor the spirit of one Christopher, who it's claimed was discovered in October of 1973 unconscious on the main stage, after having apparently fallen from one of the fly galleries, after which, the following day, he was pronounced dead from internal injuries and additional traumas. While the ghost of Christopher is said to be mostly friendly, his presence, or whatever people are mistaking for Christopher, has been known to play occasional pranks, mess with the lights, and move or even steal personal possessions, off to who knows where. Strangely, the spot where Christopher was discovered on stage is claimed to be completely immune to water damage, and some suspect his lingering presence may simply be doing its best to protect the property. A more perturbing WSU haunt is easily Richards Hall, where students have reported the startling phenomena of running into an unknown man on their way to and from the shower room, and also odd scratching and knocking noises detected on doors and walls, while the flailing silhouette of a student who hanged himself in his closet in 1978 has been known to manifest suddenly, waking those near with a fright. Lastly, and possibly most infamously, predating its acquisition by the college up until 1989, Lourdes Hall formerly belonged to the St. Teresa's Catholic School and was purchased by the college in 1990, a year after its closure. Some tell that years ago, within this very building, that a priest fathered a forbidden child with a nun by the name of either Ruth or Rebecca, who carried this child to term in secrecy, but as soon as the infant was born, that the priest threw his own baby down the elevator shaft, resulting in the nun killing herself by diving down the stairwell, and in the priest later hanging himself in the chapel, which now accommodates Lourdes Pool. While no evidence as to the validity of this tale has ever been uncovered, this hasn't stopped a perpetual slew of purported encounters with the unknown on site that many claim are likely a result of the restless spirits of those involved in this tragic drama, and those frequenting Lourdes have reported doors locking themselves, disembodied voices, and instances of posters or pictures being moved or removed entirely across the 3rd floor, while encounters with both spectral medical staff and patients across the 4th floor, which formerly acted as an infirmary for nuns, are all but common. Taking its fascinating and lengthy history into account and coupling it with such an impressive slew of campus legends and spine-tingling ghost stories, we felt there really was no better choice than WSU as our pick for the most haunted place in Minnesota. Thanks for joining us for our picks for some of the most haunted places in Minnesota. If you enjoyed hearing our histories and tales of terror, subscribe to our channel, like this upload, and share us with anyone you feel could use a good scare. We'll catch you all next time.